Spike Lee is a filmmaker whose work is deeply rooted in emotion, racial issues, and political commentary. Throughout his career, Lee has consistently used film as a way to challenge audiences, confront uncomfortable truths, and spark conversations about racism within America. Two of his most well-known films, Do the Right Thing and Black Klansman, were made almost 30 years apart, yet they share remarkably similar themes, messages, and filmmaking techniques. By examining these two films, it becomes clear that Spike Lee's style and worldview has remained consistent, and that the racial issues he addresses are still relevant today. In Spike Lee's film Do the Right Thing, released in 1989, it takes place on one extremely hot summer day in a black neighborhood in Brooklyn. The film slowly builds tension throughout the day, eventually exploding into violence at the end. On the other hand, Black Klansman, released in 2018, is the set of the 1970s, which follows a young black man who becomes the first black police officer in his department. And he goes undercover to infiltrate the Ku Klux Klan. Although the films are very different in plot and setting, they both focus on racism and systemic issues, rather than isolated incidents. One of the strongest similarities between these two films by Spike Lee is his focus on racial injustice and police brutality. In both movies, black characters are portrayed as the primary victims of a racist system, while white authority figures are often shown as the cause of escalating conflict or the root of evil. In Do the Right Thing, the police kill Radio Raheem in a confrontation which becomes an emotional breaking point in the film. Similarly, in Black Klansman, the film highlights the dangers of racist ideology through the KKK and how deeply ingrained white supremacy is within American society. Lee also emphasizes moral ambiguity in both films. There is no easy answer. He intentionally avoids telling the audience what to think. Instead, he presents situations that force viewers to question their own beliefs. This is especially clear in Do the Right Thing, where the final riot raises questions of whether Mookie's actions were justified, and Lee leaves the film open-ended, encouraging discussion rather than closure. Spike Lee's use of time and space is another defining element of his filmmaking style. In Do the Right Thing, the story takes place over a single day, creating a feeling of being trapped in a neighborhood that is slowly reaching its boiling point. The intense heat adds to the tension, making the audience feel uncomfortable and restless, just like the characters. The setting feels impossible to escape, reinforcing the idea that systemic racism is inescapable for those living within it. In Black Klansman, Lee also uses a confined space efficiently, particularly within the police station and the KKK meeting locations. These settings feel cold, threatening, oppressive. While Do the Right Thing's hot and explosive, Black Klansman feels calculated and chilling, especially with its depiction of the organization's hate. Lee frequently uses long takes and slow camera movements to capture characters' emotions. He moves the camera between characters during intense moments, allowing the audience to see multiple reactions at once. This technique appears in both films and emphasizes emotional tension. During moments of high action, Lee speeds up the pacing with quick cuts and quicker pans. Immediately afterwards, he often shifts to his slow, exaggerated scenes, forcing the audience to sit there with the emotional consequences of what just happened. This contrast keeps viewers emotionally engaged while encouraging reflection. This is most prominent at the end of Do the Right Thing, where after the Italian restaurant is burnt down, the camera slowly pans through all the characters and the reactions of the matter. Music plays a major role throughout Spike Lee's storytelling. In Do the Right Thing, the song Fight for Power is used as Radio Raheem's force of resistance. He plays it loudly throughout the neighborhood, asserting his dominance and identity, challenging any authority around him. When Sal destroys Radio Raheem's radio, it symbolizes the silence of black voices, which directly leads to Radio Raheem's death and the destruction of Sal's pizzeria. While Black Klansman uses music a little differently, it is still powerful, and the score of sound design help build tension and reinforce the seriousness of the subject matter, particularly within scenes involving the KKK. At the end of Black Klansman, Spike Lee includes real footage of modern white supremacist rallies and Black Lives Matter protests. This montage connects the past to the present, showing that the dangers of racist ideologies did not end in the 1970s. This moment is one of the more powerful in film, making it impossible for audiences to dismiss this story as purely historical. Lee achieves something similar emotionally in Do the Right Thing, where the audience is left feeling trapped, angry, and uncertain. Both endings reinforce the idea that racism is not just a problem of the past, it is ongoing and unresolved. Together, Do the Right Thing and BlacKkKlansman clearly demonstrate Spike Lee's role as an author. Despite being made nearly 30 years apart, both films share the same visual style, themes, political urgency, and general topics. Lee's consistent focus on racism, police brutality, systemic injustice shows that while time may have passed, the core issues remain largely unchanged. Through powerful imagery, emotional storytelling, and bold filmmaking choices, Spike Lee challenges his audience to not only watch his films, but to think critically about the world they live in afterwards.